So here we are, it's about 63 days until my shop closes, and it's a great opportunity for me to kind of consider, what I want to do next and kind of evaluate it's been like so far. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Django. I am a plantsman and I own a small urban garden center. It's a plant shop, but I try to focus on inside and outside, specifically for urban homes. And one of the things I love about selling people plants is I really enjoy the process of de-intimidating things for people. I love being able to take something a little bit intimidating and a little bit scary and, whatever, and try to make it fun for people and accessible and not cryptic and spooky. So, and this started back in my old neighborhood, back in the Seaport of New York City. What's up, Seaport? We loved our neighborhood and I was heavily involved. We put on festivals and art shows and all this kind of stuff in our neighborhood. And one thing that I loved from that experience, besides just putting on events with my neighbors, one thing I loved about that was how we had a lot of tourists that kind of passed through our neighborhood. It was kind of a thing down there. And so one of the goals of a lot of our art shows, no matter how avant-garde and edgy our art was, how far we pushed it, we always presented it in a friendly, we always made sure that people could walk in and not be afraid of it, and it was really fun to do. We got so many people who would have never in a million years gone to an experimental orchestra performance, you know what I mean? But they were in our neighborhood that night and they were walking by and we're like, there's an amazing show tonight, you should come see it. And they're like, what is it? And we're like, oh, it's this amazing orchestra. They build all their own instruments and it's all improvised. And they're like, what? And it's just some mom and dad from, Iowa just checking out New York. They have no idea what they just walked into. And they bring him in and they, of course, the artists put on an amazing show. And, I had so many people who would walk out of these events being like, I've never seen anything like this. I gotta admit, I was very skeptical and scared, but that was really cool. And we're like, right? So we loved that it helped people to experience something they probably never would have ever done. You know what I mean? And it was all because we were friendly about it. That was it. We were friendly. We made it friendly. We were like, it's experimental music. It's fun. We took a totally different tact. Instead of being like, what are you doing here? We were like, we're so glad you're here, And that made a big difference. And it really helped the artists too, because they ended up finding an audience they never even knew they would have. So the experience was great. And I've always remembered that. And I've always loved that feeling of taking something intimidating and confusing and cryptic and helping just my mom or some random person get it, And so that's kind of my new mission now with my TikToks and my Instagrams and stuff. I want to just demystify stuff. And it also got me thinking on a little side tangent about community activism and community work. Now, I did spend a good several years doing a lot of community work for my neighborhood, and I mostly focused on art stuff, music and art. I mostly tried to put on festivals and things like that. And we did a couple years of festivals that did really well, and they were great. I thought they were awesome, and I think they were special for us, I'm pretty familiar with being a part of a community, and it's something that I really like to do. I like being a part of a community. And I'll tell you what, if you guys are interested in community building, which I'm assuming a lot of you are, I just want to point out something here. Communities aren't always about friends. Communities don't have to necessarily like each other. You guys don't have to be friends to have a healthy community. And I think there's this idea in our heads that has been trained into us because the ones above us, they want it this way. They want us being antagonistic with our neighbors because it just works in their favor. It does not work in our favor. It works in their favor very well. But to us, it doesn't help us at all. And there's really no need to do it. It's I understand if you're let's say a trans girl living next to a Trump supporter. I understand there's going to be a problem maybe for you there. However, maybe there doesn't have to be. You know, it's like there is a possible universe where we can actually disagree and still care about our communities. You can, it's possible. I know you're like, no, I can never agree with them. Well, you don't have to agree with them. You live next door to them. You go to the same grocery store as they do. You have the same traffic issues that they do. So if we can, as people and as citizens, maybe just try and shift our gaze away from the fucking billionaires and the pop stars for just a second, because they're living lives that they don't have anything, like, we're just getting trampled underneath them is what's happening. So really, when we're talking about community, I get a little peaked sometimes when I hear people talk about communities, especially when we're talking about political stuff, because I don't think a lot of people are capable of building a good community because they cannot accept people who are different than them. And that goes for leftists as absolutely much as it does for people on the right. Absolutely. So one of my favorite goals that I've taken on in my life with the art and now with the plants is that I don't want anybody to ever feel like they can't be a part of this. You know what I mean? And it's like, if I don't agree with you, that's okay, like politically or personality-wise. We don't have to agree on those things. In fact, maybe hanging out together on common ground, like plants or art, is actually gonna allow us to communicate. God fucking forbid we actually communicate with each other instead of just coming up with visions of each other that we talk to. So this is my rant about community. I love community. I think it's super important. I think if you want to build a community of just like-minded people, you know, that's fine. That's what games and stuff are about. You know, it's like everyone's into the same type of games. You hang out together. But even in those situations, I guarantee you all have found people you fucking hate their guts, and you're still in the same group together. Somehow, yet you manage to play video games together. So I think if we can just take the mindset of trying to accept people and accept that they exist and that they're there. And I know you're like, well, they don't accept me. And it's just like, well, that's part of the thing you have to accept then. You know what I mean? Like, you can work on them, you can do your best and just be a fucking great example. You know what I mean? Like, you be a great example to them. It's like, you never know. Like, people change their minds all the time. It happens. It really happens. And what better way than in a face-to-face situation with your fucking neighbors? Like your roommates, your neighbors, the people who live across the street, the guy who owns the bodega. It's just like, this is your community. Those are your communities there. And if you just ignore them and act like they don't exist and that you're not a part of it, we're never gonna get anything. Like, we're only ever gonna be renters, working for minimum wage, and having everything taken from us. So we have to get better at this. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Thanks, y'all. See you tomorrow.